Hey Dana, how are you?
Tony, how's it going?
It's Bob. I'm about to change my name.
Oh,
There we go.
hi, Bob.
Hi there.
Hi,
Hi.
there I am.
Barbara.
See how I look. There we go.
Hello, Jeff.
Oh, good. Now that's,
I'm back at the beach,
I was gonna say,
There you go. Nice.
and I did it myself. She talked me through it over the phone. I'm so proud.
Wow. So now you can go anywhere.
Yep, that's it. I know how to download all the pictures, and I've got like 10,000 of them on my computer. So depends on the mood I'm in.
I'm impressed. So this is
Again, this is East Booth Bay.
it's Booth Bay, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it could actually, it actually looks like almost Dave Conlon's front yard facing the ocean. If any of you,
Yeah, I
right,
can see that.
yeah.
Oh, is that Egg Rock I see?
No, we look out the other way.
No, I think
Whoops.
DeWitt Brown just logged on at Egg Rock here.
That's Egg Rock, yes.
Hey, Doug, I can't do it tonight.
Oh, no.
I know, I'm sorry, because I've got our Zoom.
That's
Nick
Nick Strange and somebody else.
So can we, hi. So can we do it tomorrow night?
Yeah, we can do it tomorrow.
Oh, that'd be,
I think that's just Nick and I.
What, yes?
oh, look, that's fabulous. Grandchildren.
I know.
It's busy though, okay? So we're gonna call Grandma tomorrow.
So at 7 tomorrow works?
Yes, 7 tomorrow works.
Excellent, thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, Dylan.
Dana, your background reminds me of a song a few years back called Purple Haze.
Ooh,
It's World War I art.
World War I art.
Yeah, French artist.
Wow.
Purple Haze, wasn't that Jimi Hendrix?
Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, back in my youth.
Did you, Jeff, did you go to any of his concerts?
No, I just I liked his music. You know, Iron Butterfly and that sort of stuff.
How about
It says
the
I
Rolling
have to-
Stones over in Lynn, the Manning Bowl? Did you go to that in
Which
1960?
one?
The Rolling Stones at the
I
Manning
was
Bowl.
outside of it, but I never got in. Up at Manning Bowl, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wow. The Rolling Stones were, I never knew that.
yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
The police
They had
used
that.
tear gas on the crowd.
I
Hey,
was glad I was
folks.
outside.
My Zoom thing is turned to something strange. I don't have you on the screen except on the side. I have this Zoom United in the middle.
Are we being hacked?
I don't know. Shall I go back out? I probably should try going back out and coming back in. Sorry about that. Wait a minute. How do I do that?
All right, let's
Hey,
try.
everybody.
It's Judy
Yeah.
Z.
Yeah, there you are. Sorry, I'll go back and come back.
What's the matter?
I have
we go.
this
Look at that.
strange thing.
Oh,
It had. Okay.
Hello, Bill Brown.
Yes.
Bill, I think you're hiding behind the jib sail.
It still says launch meeting. Click open Zoom US.
let me see you.
I know you see me, but I can't see the middle
Oh,
where we would all be when one of us is talking. Very strange.
Hmm.
do you think it's, if you go up to the right corner, there's something
Yeah.
with a bunch of little squares that says view?
You throw it on full screen and that should get everybody.
No, I'm not in, I'm gonna have to get back out of this. How do I get out of it entirely? It's very strange because I've got to take minutes, obviously, and want to
Close
be
the
here.
browser.
How do I get out?
You could go away completely and come back. That's the long way, but
Yeah,
sometimes
that's what I'm gonna have to do. That's what I'm gonna have to do. But it still has me up there with you on the side.
Yep.
Huh.
Very strange. So I don't know what to do.
Now close your browser and try again.
Okay, I
we'll
still
wait.
have you up on the screen. Hang on a second. And you're still up
No.
there, even though I
Leave-
went out of my, let me close
leave-
this. Let me try again.
Leave
Hang
the
on.
meeting and then log back
Sorry
in.
about this.
You
Oh,
can't-
now I've got you. Now I'm
Huh.
fine. That's very
Or
strange.
maybe you had too many browsers open.
Yeah, it says leave meeting in the middle. So I'm going to say
No.
cancel that, right? Now I'm good. Very strange. Sorry about
No, it's
that.
glad you got it fixed.
I know. Yeah.
All right. 7:04.
You go.
We have a quorum. So present from the Finance Committee is Dana Sheehan, Bob Vanderslice, Barbara Beatty, Jeff Lewis, Judy Zahora, John Fulgham, DeWitt Brown. That's it, which is a quorum. So the meeting is in order at 7:04.
Excellent.
Julie is not with us as expected. I believe we have one set of minutes we can approve to just get that out of the way.
I think we might have two sets.
Okay, even better.
The first set, is that the April 1st? Are those the? Is that one of the two?
Didn't I take the April 1st? Here they are. I still have to embed. Hang on. Yeah, I took the April 1st minutes, which I sent to you.
All right, we had March 25th and March 30th
And April 1st,
and April 1st.
right.
I move to approve the April 1st minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Brown, aye.
Fulgham, aye.
Lewis,
Vanderslice,
aye.
aye. Whoop, Vanderslice, aye.
Do I say something? I took them, so can I still vote?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Beatty, aye.
Zahora, aye.
Sheehan has to abstain. I haven't read them, sorry.
That was what, 5? So they are approved. Be disappointed though if Barbara didn't vote for her own minutes. I just honestly forget whether we approved March the 30th and the 25th last week or not.
I don't think we did. I'm not
Did-
sure.
Either of them? Well, I suppose it can't hurt to approve
Right, might as
them
well do it.
twice.
So that would be, the dates with those would be the,
March 30th and March
March 30th.
Yeah, March 30th and March 25th.
right.
So is there a motion? And Timmy, the corgi doesn't count.
30th. I motion to approve the 30th.
Okay, second. Thank you, Bill.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Brown,
Lewis, aye.
Fulgham, aye.
Sheehan, aye.
And Vanderslice, aye. Judy, did you vote?
Zahora, aye.
Thank you. And then March 25th as well.
I will move to approve those.
Second,
All in favor?
Beatty,
Holden,
aye.
aye.
Brown eye.
Louis, I.
Vanderslice, aye.
She and I.
Sahara, I.
Excellent. So we are up to date with minutes. Which brings us to, I think there's two pressing orders of business for tonight. One is we want to vote, if we can, the remaining CPC article, the $500,000 for the 3 buildings, which I don't think, which we did not vote last time. And then the omnibus as well.
Do you want to talk about the CPC article, the $500,000 borrowing?
We can, I think we should have a motion to at least get it on the floor first.
Well, I mean, I wanted to talk about it before we vote.
Well, no, we won't vote on it, but I think we need a motion to discuss it.
So
I'll
moved.
Oh, second.
Okay, all right, now, discussion on the motion, which is, I don't remember the number,
E.
so it's gonna be
21E.
21E.
2022 E? Oh, Article 21? Yeah.
It's-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Article 21,
sub-article E.
sub-article E, or section, yeah, section E. And
Okay, as I recall, the last meeting, we talked about voting on it, and I kind of wanted to dig in a little bit, read some more about it, and understand what was going on. Just simply because it's borrowing, and this Community Preservation Committee has roughly $300,000 in reserves. So to me, it's like, all right, we've got 300,000 in reserves, but they're gonna borrow 500 to finance the 3 separate projects, which I understand from a high level, but not the detail. And right now they're working on 4% interest rates that they're gonna have to pay for that. We, the town. So does anybody have any thoughts about that?
So one of the things to consider, Dana, that I can try to go find the numbers, is that those reserves can fall into different buckets. They can fall into just general reserves, or they can fall into the specific set aside reserves. And if they're in the like affordable housing reserve or the open space / recreation reserve, then those can't be used for this article, is my understanding. So I think we need to, if we're going to talk about potential excess reserves being held, where we could instead use them instead of borrowing, we just need to know for sure that the $300,000 number that you cite in reserves, if any of it is committed to other buckets. And I would imagine it is, but I don't have those numbers in front of me. Does anybody else know?
I know what you're saying is the way it's done. I don't know how it breaks out between the various purposes or sub funds, whatever you want to call them.
I'm gonna go, you guys can keep talking if anybody wants to talk, and I'll go try to see if I can find any.
John, could you tell me again the names of the buckets that you were talking about? So I
Well,
can get-
that's what I,
One is for housing,
yeah, let me find my.
affordable housing is one, and
Open space is another.
Okay.
and yeah.
housing.
Recreation, I think, is another there, and there's a fourth, which I don't remember.
The open space is roughly 10% or $30,000, somewhere around there. And I would assume that
So
recreation is
I
10%.
can answer this.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Speaking.
So there are 10% reserves for affordable housing, for open space, and for historic preservation.
Thank you. That's the fourth.
The 70% can be used for any of those 3 item areas or for recreational purposes.
So of the 300,000, 10% is for open space, 10% is for affordable housing, 10% is for,
Under the act, 10% of those 3 areas, historic preservation, open space, and affordable housing, need to be set aside, either appropriated or set aside as reserves each year.
yep, okay.
So
Okay, but
I
that's a,
have, well, this isn't going to help us because it's 2 years old, but just for example, in 2017, the open space reserves were 35,000. The general reserves were roughly 115, and then the housing reserves were 124. So I guess to specifically answer your question, Dana, we'd want to know what the current balances of those funds are.
I have the current balances, John.
Okay, thank you.
So in the general reserves, there's currently $322,500. And in the housing reserves, there's $202,410. However, if the articles that are going before this town meeting, some of those articles are utilizing the general reserves or the housing reserves. So if all the articles pass, that would leave a balance in the general reserves of $211,294 and in the housing reserve of $100,650.
Thank you.
Yep.
Excuse me, Allison, what was the general reserve number?
211,294.
Got it.
That's if, the articles that are using some of those reserves. And then it adds back some of those clawbacks
Right.
that if those get approved too. So
Right.
that's what the balance would be.
so that's the fund balance as if all of these articles passed.
Correct.
Does that answer the question, Dana? And I'm not sure where you're going with that. I mean, I understand the question. I just don't understand the thrust of the question.
The thrust of the question is if there's gonna be 500,000 in borrowing, why are we holding 200 in reserves? Lynn could answer this question, I'm pretty sure. But that's the question. Like. Dennis,
So
I thought I just heard that was statutory, didn't I? Or did I misinterpret that? That appropriation is made before you actually go out and determine what we're going to use the funds on. Allison, did I misconstrue that or?
Yeah, so I'm also relatively new to CPC as well. But yes, my understanding is that every year you either have to appropriate or you have to set aside in reserves 10% into each of those buckets.
Before you do anything.
Correct.
So then when it comes time to budget for the actual expenditures or proposed expenditures, you're leaving the bucket alone. Is that correct?
I'm not sure I'm following.
I see
I'm not-
Mr. Mussman on there.
I
Do you
think,
know the-
yeah, I think
do.
I think you're going in the right direction, Jeff. So if, for example, if housing starts with a $10,000 reserve, you have to set aside $10,000, but you don't spend any of it. So your reserve will build.
So
Go ahead.
what I'm guessing has happened, Jeff, without looking at the specifics, is that some of the projects that are being recommended this year will be reaching into some of the reserves. So the housing reserve, as Allison pointed out, was being reduced by somewhere around $100,000. So at least one of the articles that is being proposed by CPC would include allocation to the housing reserve, meaning it's a project that would fit within the category of affordable housing. Similarly, if there was a reduction in any of the other reserves, it would be because a project was affordable housing or historic preservation. The general reserve can be used for any of those categories. Historically, there has been a set aside, an effort to reserve somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 in the general reserve to be able to address a specific need in the future going forward. If there was a big thing that was needed, the thought was that as in this situation, the reserves are being used in large measure. So we're reducing the general reserve from 300,000 to 200,000. And I'm using rough numbers, I think, after the recommendation. And similarly, the housing reserve is being reduced by $100,000. So there's always a balancing. The Community Preservation Committee is intending to look both for the short-term needs and the longer-term needs of the town. And they try to balance it, and their recommendations contemplate reserving some amount of money effectively as contingency, if you will.
So if my memory serves, then 300,000 is roughly 1 year worth of funding from taxes, 3%.
Yeah, I think somewhere around $230,000 is the surtax amount, and
then the
that's
state
then
piece.
matched by in last year almost 70%. So
It's like over, it's over
That is-
400 a year.
what's that?
Right. It's over 400,000 a year, correct?
No, it is not. I don't think it's.
Uh,
So if we raise $230,000, and Allison, you can
70%
correct me
of that.
on the number, and I think the match last year was 69.4%. So 70% of 230 is 160. Yeah, I guess it would be close to $400,000.
It was
last year.
$397,000.
Right.
Oh, I was off by 3,000, sorry. All right, but
But
I
Wait,
guess,
Allison,
the
what
essential
was,
point, I'm sorry, go ahead.
what was the 300? What, I need to be able to say what that was.
Yep, so the surtax that was collected was 220,938.
Right?
The match from the state was $175,243. And then because we invest those funds into a bank account, it earns interest. So the interest was $1,000. So the
You guys
total
see the
was,
spreadsheet I have up? It's
Yep.
basically,
yeah, that's where it is. Mhm.
And so that then becomes all of that equals the general reserve? No,
That's revenue for the year.
excuse me, it's revenue. Got it. Thank you.
right. So in looking at fiscal year 2021, it shows a number of $397,181 total revenues. Of that, 10%, almost $40,000 has to be set aside for the three areas that we talked about: historic preservation, affordable housing, and open space. So that would leave, $270,000 for general purposes, any of those three areas, or recreation.
So it looks like you run it like an imprest fund. You try to keep a minimum balance and everything else is used to cover debt service.
Well,
Or-
I don't know.
Or expenses for the year.
Expenses, yeah. Well, I'm
So-
assuming that the majority of expenses in this must be debt service.
Hmm,
Well, not currently.
Not really, no.
No?
So the only debt service currently would be the library bond that was funded last year, I think. So as you can look at the chart for fiscal year 22, only only the payment on that 10-year bond is paid in fiscal year 22 of 55,000, whatever, $600.
Right, so back to where we started though, we thought that there was excess reserves of 211,000 in the general fund. Is that right, Allison?
There are reserves. I don't know that they're excess reserves, but there are reserves of that, or there will be reserves of that if these all pass.
Correct, yes.
So just a couple of things, like three things. One, just for the minutes and everyone, Jeff is a former chair of this, of the CPC committee, so he does know whereof he speaks.
The other Jeff.
The other Jeff. The Jeff that's not in Booth Bay. And then I don't know, the reserves that are anticipated end up being less than 1 year's worth of revenue, which doesn't seem too bad to me. I mean, it seems reasonable to hold that in as a contingency or a deposit against future projects. And then the third thing is we've traditionally given the CPC a fair amount of latitude and respected their judgment in how they choose to manage this set of funds. But Dana, are you proposing I'm still kind of at a loss for what
What am I proposing?
what action you are proposing here other than asking for an explanation.
That's a fair question, Bob. My action that I'm proposing is to discuss it and to see what people are thinking. Somebody with more experience like yourself, that you can tell me about the latitude, etc. But I just thought that with the borrowing, of $500,000 when there's 200,000 that seems to be not allocated, that maybe, it might make sense to use some of that rather than borrow 500. Especially with the eminent domain article, we're going to be looking at 1.5 million of borrowing over 30 years, looking at adding some debt, which significantly reduces what CPC funds are available in the out years.
Can Jeff Mussman, you mentioned other than the $400,000 debt, which is with the library now,
Yes. Mhm.
and I look at these numbers, you must have paid cash for projects in the past.
Yeah, many projects have been funded, and many this year are recommended for cash as well. But borrowing has happened. We borrowed $750,000 to do a wharf project.
Yeah, right.
Allison, we borrowed money to do 40 steps, the 40 steps, the 40 steps at 40 Steps Beach.
The 57-step beach.
Okay, whatever. Right.
I thought it was 60.
So there
I
have
made it
been
up.
instances in the past that we have borrowed money largely because we wanted to spend more money than was going to be available, easily available in that given year. The
Yeah, it gives you the-
$500,000 that is being proposed seems to be one of those kinds of expenditures. The fact is, if you were sitting on that committee, you could have said, maybe we'll reduce the reserves by $100,000 and only borrow $400,000. But again, that committee, of which I am not a member now, made a determination balancing what they thought were long and short-term, the short-term and long-term perspectives of the town, and are making that recommendation on the $500,000 to accommodate what Tony believes is an important expenditure in fiscal year 2022 related to those 3 buildings. So
And Jeff, maybe you don't know about it, but I'll just throw it out there. Is this work? How much of this work is going to be done this fiscal year, 2022 versus, over the life of the loan?
I don't know. I don't know that, Dana.
Okay.
Um,
I didn't expect you to, but I just thought you might. But
No, I don't.
I mean, it's not a huge number. It's just 200,000. But when you borrow 500 and there's 200 or less available, I'm just throwing it out to the committee. We are the finance committee, and see what people think about it. And we can vote.
It just means that there's less that the CPC can do. And that applies also to the borrowing for the eminent domain. So by doing the borrowing, they're limiting what they can do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of think of this in the context of the things that Jeff has kind of tried to flesh out and make us kind of aware of in a more systematic way in terms of, where our buckets of debt are and how big are those buckets and what are the trends and what capacity do we have in the future in those buckets. So I think, Dana, your point about paying attention to it is a good one. And I think your point about, this kind of maybe goes back to the pledge that we have from Tony, not with respect to the CPC specifically, but in general, to have some financial policies in place to kind of guide these decisions. So I think the decisions that have been made by the committee and endorsed by Tony so far are kind of historical and institutional knowledge and assumptions based decisions. And us as a committee who don't look at this stuff all the time, but maybe have a general sense of what's going on, just layering in some more systematic policy about how we use debt in CPC and in the town in general, I think is a good one. So I don't knock you for bringing it up, but I'm not sure exactly what we can do about it other than your point of discussing it now. And I guess just, keep paying attention and come up with a more systematic and formal way of keeping track of it. And again, I think Jeff's tables with the help of Allison and the charts and the visual representations are at least something we can do.
Well, points well taken, John. I appreciate those comments. And Austin's on the line here. And Austin, would you mind if, we kind of ask you a little bit about the reserves that have been held for community preservation? I don't know if you're listening or not, but.
I actually think FinCom is meeting at this moment. Dana, I don't know.
CPC, yeah. Okay.
All right. Are we prepared to take a vote on this one?
I am.
Me too.
I am, yes.
I am.
All right.
Yeah, I
So
agree to vote on it.
the motion was to approve. Roll call vote.
Fulgham, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Lewis, I.
Vanderslice, aye.
Zahora, I.
She and no.
Brown eye. Did it go through?
So it is approved. And we go to move on to the omnibus.
You want to, as long as we're in CPC, do we want to, we want to approve? I had in my notes that we hadn't approved 21U. the FY 22 set asides. I don't know if I missed something there. But I thought we didn't approve that. So that to me is just kind of a formality.
So let's just do it.
All right.
What's the set aside?
So that's what we were just talking about. When that aggregate number of revenues comes in, we have to take those 10% pieces of the pie and put them in those buckets. So we're just basically in Article U doing that.
So if you don't hit your target in any of those buckets for the year, you have to put into reserves an amount to bring you up to the target. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second it.
All right. Motion is made and seconded. Discussion.
Where are we?
Yeah, I was trying to, that's what I was trying to find, but I can't find it. Am I muted or not muted? I have.
You're
no
here.
idea.
We can hear every word, Bill.
So it's you sitting there in front of us to recommend the town set aside from fiscal year 2020 from CPC fund revenues for the later appropriation of any other amount not otherwise set aside or appropriated as aforesaid to be maintained in the community. So maybe it's just for the anything that doesn't go into the buckets actually goes into the general reserve that we don't use. That's what I'm reading it as.
Thank you.
So I think I asked this on Tuesday's meeting. Is there an actual dollar amount that's associated with this subsection?
So
Okay.
Allison, historically, it's the catch-all. It's the net amount. Whatever hasn't been appropriated simply gets picked up by this particular motion.
Okay, and so do you know how the motion, I guess I haven't seen the motion before. Do you know how the motion reads? Does it say a specific dollar amount or no?
No, it
Okay.
reads as it's presented there.
Presented here. Okay, thank you.
Can I have a minute or two just to discuss what we were just talking about, since the vote's already taken and it's behind us?
Sure.
It's relevant to this.
Yeah, it's Dana. I'm a huge proponent of infrastructure, and I notice that this town seems to be marching forward with a very aggressive but very good plan for attacking infrastructure. When you do that, if you have small projects, you can pay for those projects out of working capital. As the projects get larger and more complex, you have to start leveraging. Leverage means, well, geez, if I pay for this out of working capital, I'm going to be paying for it for the next 5 years. And some contractor may not want to carry those expenses for doing the job in 5 years. So by using debt, you can attack larger projects. But what that does is it starts crowding out smaller expenditures because you've committed to larger projects. So I like the idea of being able to, one, this is a fund that commingles fund. It's a great concept, number one, because it's not just our dollars, it's state dollars and volunteer dollars and all kinds of good stuff like that. Just as long as, and I think the committee realizes that if you take on this $500,000, like you took on the $400,000 library, that's going to crowd out the ability to fund smaller projects for some period of time. And as long as I remember when I did my retaining wall in the backyard, I had to borrow for it. Well, we didn't need out for a couple of years, but we eventually paid off the loan. And I think that's what's going to happen here. We're addressing larger projects The cash is going to go out, but it's going to go out to fewer people in the form of debt service until it's paid down. And then they'll start taking smaller projects again. Anyway, I'll shut up.
No, Jeff, you're absolutely right. And it doesn't crowd
Hi,
out,
this is Tony.
doesn't crowd out, hi, Tony,
Hi, Tony.
all of the smaller projects. And that's what the CPC is charged
Yeah,
with
they're
doing,
managing
is
that
to strike the
situation.
balance, you know. So somebody earlier said that debt limits your capability. And I just think I would argue exactly the opposite. By borrowing for some of these larger projects, you vastly expand the kinds of things you can do because you're no longer limited to.
It impacts future projects.
It does, yes,
It
absolutely
bigger
does.
ones right up, but it takes longer to pay them off,
Yep.
which means you can't do more revising
Yes, yeah,
tennis courts that cost as much to put them in when they were in the lowlands.
yeah. Then that's the balancing act that the committee is trying to strike here.
You know, those are all good comments, and I was just questioning the level of reserves because every year it's almost, you know, the numbers are laid out in the spreadsheet we looked at. Every year we're going to get, you know, roughly $400 or more $1,000. So if you can spread out a project over a couple of 3 years and pay for it out of that 400 rather than lowering the amount that you get, you know, over the time span of these loans. Now, for example, you know, we haven't touched eminent domain yet, but the interest there is going to be $1 million in interest, just the interest payments in 30 years. So that's going to lower community preservation funds. And, you know, people notice that. So anyway, I've said a lot about it, and I'm glad that the committee is thinking about it, and I appreciate the thoughts. I'm not against the work that was, you know, we just voted for. I was the sole one that voted against it, but I just felt like the reserves could be better employed to not borrow as much.
Yeah, so Lynn's here. Lynn, do you want to just chime in quickly and at a high level of how the committee thinks about reserves? Meaning how much to hold and how much to spend?
Yeah, so hey, Lynn, just as a crash background here, that the discussion the discussion has been on the $500,000 borrowing that's covering the 3 buildings. Should some of that, could we have reduced the borrowing by funding it from reserves? You know, and kind of, you know, how is the balance struck?
So we're going in, when we initially looked at our fiscal 21 recommendations, we were going to end up with a reserve of about $75,000. So we were cautious about that. As we look at the addition of fiscal year 22, we have a somewhat lesser number of articles being funded, but at a higher amount. You know, yes, we are projecting ending up with about $140,000 worth of reserve. You know, our habit in the past has been to have about between 100 and 120,000. So that seems reasonable to us. You know, the reserve enables us to have greater flexibility when we get into some of the downtimes. There's a lot of background noise coming through. Are people able to hear me? Yeah. Oh, that's better. Thank you. So our balance is to, you know, our desire is always to have, as I said, you know, between 100, 120, we're ending up with 140. You know, we feel like the opportunity to deal with critical deferred maintenance issues at the public library in particular, the Green Lawn Cemetery archway, and also at Town Hall is a worthwhile investment. And we've looked at the projections that were prepared in 2018 in terms of, you know, the overall needs of those buildings. This seems to us a prudent investment to continue to allow those elements to degrade is simply going to mean costing more money. And so much of this work is like work, meaning it's masonry restoration and some window restoration. It made sense to us to also consolidate the architectural effort as well as the bidding documents. We think it will give best value to the town. Bidding out small projects year after year actually in the end costs us more money in terms of administration and architectural fees, as well as the increased amount of deferred maintenance capital needs. I'm finished.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for describing that, Lynn. And this is Dana. So I kind of kicked over this hornet's nest to begin with, but we've already voted on it and it's passed. But
Okay, sorry.
just for the education of the committee,
Okay.
you talked about, 100, 140. Allison told us it'd be in the general reserves this year, 211,000. Is that not the right number?
My number is a little bit different than Allison's, but
Okay. We won't have dueling numbers then, but just wanted to understand.
if we ended up with $200,000, let me just say this. That gives us the flexibility as we look out on our projections to 2023, where we will have lesser amount because of the obligations that we possibly will be undertaking. And so having that reserve gives us the flexibility we need in anticipation of that.
Okay, I'll let somebody else talk.
Okay. And who, I don't know, was it you that popped up the chart that showed the CPC revenue?
Yes.
Yes, it's a chart that I had provided to the committee, to actually John and you, Bob, and Dana and the others who have been attending CPC meetings. I think that's been Dana, Julie, and Barbara.
This one?
That's
But
it.
yes, there it is. So many thanks to Allison, who took what was actually started last year as a projection and then added in the effect of the proposed $500,000 aggregate building bond.
So this one doesn't show fund balance in here. So basically, it sounds like, well, we're not going to have dueling numbers on town hall floor, but it sounds like we may be actually in better shape than we've thought, because the fund balance may be greater, or the reserves may be greater.
It may be. So for instance, we had made, when we were doing some of our earlier calculations, we felt that I thought the library bond from the $400,000 library bond from 2019 had actually kicked in earlier than it did. So that's why I think, Allison, we have that difference, because I think I was counting it out, but yeah, so.
All right.
It's when the bonds actually are taken by the town and when they start paying down the debt.
Okay, so this kind of, this makes sense. So fiscal 23 is the low point, if you will.
Yep,
And
it's
if
a low point.
Yeah, if we're coming in with greater reserves, that should help carry us through 23 and make the 23 fund availability that much more, so that we could tackle these things that are done in 1 year funds rather than in borrowed funds.
That's right, Bob. And when we look at what we might be taking in from the surcharge plus the state match, we have been using a 50% state match. So we have been lucky in the past to be seeing higher amounts, but we don't count on it. So when we get that, extra, in this last year, it was 69%, it goes into the reserve.
That surtax, What's the number that surtax is calculated on? Is it the tax levy?
It's a surtax on the real estate tax, less the first $100,000 value. And I get the numbers from the assessor's office.
I think it's 3%.
Yeah, in our case, we're 3% town, which was very wise of us because that puts us in the best position for the state matches as they're given out. 1% towns get less, quite honestly.
Okay,
Yeah, this-
so it's on the tax levy limit.
Is
On the tax levy.
it's 3% of your tax payment if your home value was $100,000 less.
Okay, but when
that
you
make
say
sense?
on the tax limit, I'm trying to determine if it's on the, before the debt exclusions or after the debt exclusions.
Has nothing to do with the debt exclusions.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So it's on the tax.
It's on the revenue side.
Right, that's where I'm trying to determine if it's on the 9,715,000 or the 10,892,000.
I don't think it's,
It's not really, I think that's a harder way to try to figure it out.
yeah.
It's, if you were to think about it as an individual household. If your house,
yes.
Right.
if your house value was 600,000, say it was 500,000, calculate your property tax on that, and then take 3% of it, and then
Oh,
add them all up.
So it's on a house by house basis.
Right.
Yes, it's on
Right.
real estate tax.
So it's assessed value minus $100,000 times the tax rate times 3%.
Oh, okay, that does make it simpler. Thank you
It is pretty
very much.
simple.
I just learned a neat thing.
So Lynn, it's interesting that as I look at these numbers progress fiscal year 21, 22, 23, we can see that it's a conservative line that you've drawn there with the estimated state share of 108,110. You would probably, have a higher confidence and it's going to be a little higher than that.
Well,
And
that's been our experience. So we're using 50% for this analysis, but our experience has been higher.
and then the actual surtax itself, why would it be less year over year from 21 to 22?
I cannot really tell you that. It came to me from the assessor's office.
Got it.
So, I have to sort of, I have faith in the projections they give us, but it did strike me as, it's $4,000 less than it was last year. So,
Yeah, it looks kind of flat. The number I would think would be going up a little more than that, but all right. That's helpful for me. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Well,
We missed you on our committee, Dana.
our tax rate actually decreased. Home values went up, so I'm wondering if that's why, but I have to think through that.
Another factor, I actually have the calculation in front of me that Sheila does. And another factor is it eliminates all of the abatements and exemptions that are granted. So in some years, those amounts could be higher as well. So it kind of takes that, it deducts that from the equation.
And given COVID last year, that may be part of the effect, so people were seeking some exemptions.
Right. And Jeff Lewis, another interesting thing about this is since that 3% is already baked into your real estate tax bill,
Right.
real estate taxes do not go up for any of these based on any of these expenditures out of the CPC because it's already built in there.
No, just like dawn over Marblehead, it came to me.
Well, and the other part that
We
has to
say
be,
that too.
the other part that has to be said is this includes a state match. So if you look at the $1.5 million, there's a state match that's coming in to help fund that.
Exactly. Okay,
Exactly.
so do we want to vote on this sub-article U? That's where we were when we last left our heroes here.
Well, I thought that passed.
No, we did not, but thank you. I was just gonna say that, Bob.
I should have kept
We
my
still
mouth
need
closed.
to vote. We opened up you to discussion, and this is all the discussion we had, but we didn't actually vote it. We voted the the large 500,000 one that we were discussing, but we have not voted you. We need to do that.
All right, are we prepared to do that? Yes?
Yes,
Yay, all right, all in favor?
but we,
Okay,
yeah, I was just gonna say, we have a second.
We had
So-
a, wait a minute, it's, we moved him, we did move and second it, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought I seconded
Judy,
it.
you moved it,
Right.
and Jeff, you seconded it.
Yeah, that's why I thought everybody voted aye. I blew it, sorry. I'll second it again.
don't second it, please just vote yay or nay.
Yay.
All right, Jeff Lewis votes yay, Vanderslay's yay.
Oldham, yes.
Beatty, aye.
Sahara, I.
Brown, aye.
Sheehan, aye.
I think that is it. All right, so that is everything in the CPC except for sub-article V, which is the eminent domain funding. And we'll defer that one until next Tuesday, so we can, I think it makes sense to discuss that funding together with the actual eminent domain authorization article, to take those two together, because they are pretty tightly bound together. And it brings us to the omnibus.
Did we do Article 20 yet, Bob?
Did we do Article 20?
No, I mean, you want to
No.
jump, we can do that first and then go back to the omnibus if you want to.
Yeah,
that's fine.
yeah. Yep.
All right, I think what we were kind of waiting for was some language in there, in the Article 20 I'm talking about, was in the last paragraph. We wanted a number there to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, some number to do the conditioning of the lots for sale. But we don't have the number yet. Or do we?
I don't know. That's a Tony
I
question.
can jump in. So I'm sorry I haven't sent you guys the email yet, but I did reach out to Peter Barba and spoke with him about the research that they had done, and you were pretty close, Dana, around 200. We took another look at it. Some of the things that they didn't include would be legal fees, costs associated with the procurement. So we would probably outsource. We'd probably bring in a company to do the actual auction or bidding of the properties instead of doing that in-house if this were to pass. So we estimated, if you also include the 1 year later inflating some of that price, we think 300 would be the number, a good cap. Obviously, if you ended up dealing with a leaky underground storage tank, it's going to blow that budget anyways. But that's a good ceiling number to encompass the costs associated with the development or the preparation of the lots for sale.
Okay, so Tony, procedurally, how do you plan to deal with this? Or do you want to open
It
and
will be
close
in
the
the
warrant?
motion.
So it will be in the motion itself on town hall floor.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, and then in our commentary, we can note that.
right, if you guys wanted to include it in a supporting statement, or if you wanted something from me, or I could work with Peter, from the committee. We could include it in that, but certainly it'll be in the motion.
Yeah, I think that, Tony, this is Dana. I think that would, if the estimate's coming from the Coast Guard Committee, if they could add that as some kind of comment in the, if it's not gonna be in the article itself.
So you want me to add, you want us,
That sounds good, and I'm meeting with them, I think I'm meeting with them early next week, but I can get that going, beforehand so that we can get it over to you guys.
But Judy, it probably couldn't hurt to include it in our recommendation as well.
right, I was just gonna say, so you want us to, when we add in the recommendation, an additional $300,000 for lot readiness.
Yeah, you can also just make that comment that it's going to also be in the motion as well, just to give it some firmer grounding.
I'm really worried about that. Really, guys, I'm really worried about, I know we have to do it and I know it's got to be done, but I'm worried about putting that in there. I'm worried about doing anything that's going in any way to track to the fact that we got to do something about that property. So I'm afraid people will just get caught up in that and miss the other parts.
I think a good point that we can include from the committee to you, or if you want to include it in your statement, is they're estimating anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000 per lot. The last two lots maybe $420,000. Their total profit on it is somewhere between like 3.5 and 4 million, and I think we owe 1.8. So if you put it in that perspective of this additional 300 will be paid for by the revenue of the sales, it may provide some comfort to the voters that it's not being added to the overall cost of the town. It's almost self-funded in a sense.
Okay.
I think the other thing that we had pledged to do is include the kind of, I don't know if it's the stripped down version of the report, but the presentation that Peter gave us, we were going to include in the appendix of the book. And I think somewhere in that presentation, it gives some rough assessment of the theoretical income and expense, doesn't it? Didn't it?
Yes, I mean, it does, but on town floor, people only see what they see in that very brief moment. I mean, I guess that they've read the warrant and they might have gone through the book. It's just a concern. If there isn't any way out of it and there any way around it, but it's just a concern.
I think we could safely say something like the town stands to realize between 1.4 and 1.9 million dollars from the sale of these properties. And the way I got to that was I took Tony's low of 3.5 million, subtracted 300,000 in site prep expenses, and subtracted the 1.8 that we still owe.
So that's just gain approximate. Okay, I can put that in there.
Would you give me the numbers again, please? I'm sorry, but
Luckily, I did write them down. So assume that we sell the properties for the low of $3.5 million,
yeah, I had that.
right?
Yeah.
And then you subtract $300,000 for site prep work.
Yep.
And subtract $1.8 million, which is what we still owe on
The debt,
right? And you're left with 1.4.
Got it. That was the 1.4 I needed. Thank you.
I feel a little uncomfortable putting the numbers out there. It's just so far off in terms of, not the numbers are far off, but the timing of when the sales happen and what's going to happen with when we dig up these oil tanks, etc. And putting a number out there like that, it's just going to be an estimate, and I'm not sure how close it's going to be. So does anybody else have any thoughts along that?
Seems like you're counting your monies before you've realized it.
Right, but I do think we need to do something to offset the fact that we are talking about you know, amongst a $300,000 expense to clear the land. So I think we have to do, if we're going to put that number out, we have to do something to offset. We can say that we anticipate about $300,000 to clear the land and make it sellable, but we anticipate after all expenses an approximate profit of somewhere between 1.4, $1.9 million. I can make that as vague as we possibly can.
Judy, I think those are good points. I'd like to hear, though, the number come from the Coast Guard Committee versus us, because we don't really know. We're just talking about various numbers right now. So they're the ones that have done the research and the analysis to come up with that.
Fair.
You know, that's all I'm thinking.
Okay.
Okay. Are we prepared to vote on this?
I am.
All right, well, motion. I don't think we even have a motion yet, do we?
Oh, we don't have a motion
We
yet.
don't. So we need a motion and a second before anything else.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I second it.
All right, all in favor, and it's a roll call vote.
Bolger, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Brown eye.
Vanderslice, aye.
Lewis, aye.
Sahara, aye.
She and I.
Excellent.
Is that a unanimous?
Yes, it was unanimous.
Woohoo!
Yay. All right. So we get to cross off another one. Omnibus.
So do we want to? I mean, I can pull up the budget if you think we need to, or we can just, you know, we kind of went through the various departments and, you know, had the conversations with Tony. And in my mind, there was really only, I mean, there was two places. There's the library making the appeal for the extra funding that's different than what the town administrator recommended. And I think we've had some discussion on that with Sharon and with the library trustees. You know, Jeff has gone out and taken some of the data that Sharon provided and, you know, kind of played with it and looked at it. And I thought his presentation, you know, gave us, the committee, if we were so inclined to vote to keep the budget at the town administrator number, it gave us some rationalization and cover that we could use on the floor if we needed to. But I don't want to characterize the committee's opinion unilaterally. So what do people think? At least not in the respect to the whole omnibus, but with respect to the extra money the library was looking for.
I would like the library to get, I don't think it's a very large amount. And after having met, you know, extensively and heard Sharon give us a great, really very convincing detail about it, I would prefer to have that extra small amount included.
I would not. I understand I understand the request, but actually every department has a request, and we've said no a lot.
No, I understand that.
So
I'm
I understand that. I'm not just a second,
sorry.
because I'm kind of on a roll. I'm particularly dismayed because we have provided money to the library, but we also have a request. We know that we have facility issues in both of our fire department and our police department. We have a lot of other things going on. It's a small amount. Everybody's got a small amount. It becomes that we just don't have the revenue coming in. I think this is not the year. I'm off the box. It frustrated me. It just frustrated me because when you come in and say it's a small amount, I don't know why you can't give it to us, just frustrates me. It means that you haven't listened to every other department come in and say, and us say no to them.
Yeah, I also feel that, you know, the proposed kind of compromise, or one of the compromises of getting the school and the library to work together for the children's librarian. You know, again, I know money gets moved around and positions get kind of stated as one thing, but to me, it just seems like part of the kind of unified, you know, expense for children's librarians could be better and more efficiently dealt with if the,
Hey Linda, it's
if
Michelle.
the
You
two,
cut out.
if the
I
two
don't know if you turned your
departments
mic
work
off
together.
when you weren't finished.
Michelle, I think you're not muted. So I'd be inclined to keep the budget, my personal opinion,
Yes.
where it is with respect to the town administrator's recommendation.
And John, was that, just trying to follow the discussion, are we talking about the extra hire for the library? Is that, would that change the omnibus somehow?
I mean, it's not budgeted, so I mean, we'd have to decide where to find that money.
Yeah, it does. I kind of have a tendency to think it's premature without the library being open. But okay, I mean, if you vote on the omnibus, it's not including that position.
Correct.
All right.
And in my mind, that was one, you know, that was one of the other thing that was a little bit, you know, I don't want to say out of line, but not entirely consistent with our drive to kind of keep FTEs, you know, reduced or minimized or not increasing. You know, the addition of the fire chief. You know, I think we were kind of in our discussions with Tony and with the department. I think there was pretty much uniform agreement that that model was the model that the town needs and the town is kind of committed to, and trying to kind of make it work without adding the full-time chief position was something that we were kind of essentially going to give up on. So that's another place that, you know, if we were going to be entirely ruthless, then we'd maybe do something there, but I don't.
Not ruthless, John.
Yeah.
Fiscally prudent.
Okay, more
The-
fiscally conservative and prudent, yeah.
In a sense, this one is almost the opposite of the librarian, where there is a new position funded that we're questioning.
We're not, I mean, we didn't question it really hard because I think we've had the discussion with the fire department over the years and kind of given them, they've committed, at least in the intermediate term, to trying a model that dispensed with the need for a full-time chief. And, you know, in our conversations with them, it seems like it's a convincing and honest and sincere answer that is just isn't working in this day and age.
But they piloted it. I mean, they just spent a year trying it.
Right.
So what could we do there if we're against that? Could the FinCom?
Yeah, we could change, I mean, it's our budget, so we could go in and change the, you know, I don't have I could pull it up, but I think the overall spend in the fire department was less than,
Yep.
increase was less than 2.5 or 3%. So overall, you know, they're damping down and managing expenses even in the context of that increase. So, I mean, we can go in and do whatever, you know, not.
Yeah, and even if we, you know, if we chose to do that, I'm not sure it's as simple as just saying, oh, we don't need this individual.
Yeah.
because they may have to rejigger everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just bringing it up. I don't think we should be messing with it. I think at this point in the process, it wouldn't be right or prudent to deviate from that. I was just bringing that up as one example in the context of the entire omnibus where, you know,
Yeah, John, I'm not thinking that either. I'm just trying to understand the process. Since it is our budget, we can still make changes to it.
yeah,
And-
and I think if we were so inclined, the right thing to do would have been to have this conversation over the last 2 or 3 months rather than, you know, the night of making the
Right.
vote. So,
Because the conversation right now, this big part of the conversation is about the additional expense in the library. And that's, you know, so we need to be careful what our scope is.
yeah,
But the point is, if we're going to open the budget for that, then we have to, then by rights, we have to open up the budget for every department.
Would like to say that I think that we should vote on this the way the budget has been proposed to us. But I do feel that the town should have a children's librarian.
I mean, I understand that. I think the town needs to fix the fire department building. But so there's lots of need in this town.
right. So I think, I mean, these are things that I think we can, you know, figure out how to tie in, you know, I don't know exactly, but tie into the letter, you know, these are kind of things that we're faced with on a high level and the decisions we made and what needs to be done in the future, you know. So I don't think we're talking about it here for no reason at all, as long as we kind of weave it into our narrative.
This is Tony. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Would you like me to provide some comment?
I never want to say no to you, Tony, but I know, I mean, I was just, I never want to say no to you. And in this case, you mean you can, but do we have a motion on the floor yet?
No.
No, we don't.
No.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So some of the conversation that you guys are having, I just wanted to point out that the budget that's presented to you, is not a representation that the Board of Selectmen or myself disagree with the need for a children's librarian. It was more so looking at the impacts of a full-time person or a part-time person. And the $10,000 in addition may seem small, but when you're talking about a full-time position, you bring in the cost of benefits. And so we looked at the library's budget and felt there was enough money in there to provide the same hourly rate that the library is requesting, but at a part-time position, which, you know, avoids the benefits, additional cost of benefits. The other piece that's unique to the library's budget is that they, in order to remain as a credited public library, a percentage of their expenditures, I think 19% or something like that, has to go towards materials. So as you increase the total amount of their budget, that percentage increases as well. So I don't want the conversation to be, you know, whether the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator disagreed with the need for a children's librarian. It was more of looking at the personnel costs and the impacts of that altogether. So I just wanted to clarify that part.
I appreciate that, Tony, because it's a very It's not a fine point, and it's a very specific point. I've been on this board long enough to know that we've talked over the years that we keep increasing headcount, we don't have any increase in revenue. And so this would be just another, and it starts out small, right? Each increase in headcount is just a little bit, part-time, sometime, and then it becomes full-time. And then, so it's not, it's a, unless we figure out a way to to bring revenue in, increasing headcount isn't the way to go forward.
And I
Well,
think,
Yeah,
this
I'm
is
not trying to persuade, I'm not trying to persuade you guys one way or the other. I just wanted to clarify. I don't want it to sound like the town administrator or the board of selectmen disagree with the need. It's just a matter of how can you do it in a way that is fiscally prudent, as you mentioned earlier. I don't want to persuade you one way or the other. I respect your opinions and decision on this, and I respect the library's request. I just wanted to be clear about that.
Tony, either you or Allison, have you done the calculation as to what the payroll and benefit burden is for an employee? The reason I ask is in prior companies, it goes as high as 35 to 40%. I don't know what it is in this town.
Yeah, we look
We-
at, we kind of just say as the benefit rate. I mean, we don't know when if a person coming on is going to choose, you know, an individual health plan, or they're allowed to have a family health plan. It could be, you know, up to $21,000 additionally just for health insurance.
Yep. It's in Article 1, our recommendation for Article 1.
yes,
And that does not count as the retirement either.
No, that's what I'm, when you talk about fully burdened, it's not just, what is it? FUTA, I forget all the initials, but it's taxes, benefits, retirement, and it's a big chunk of change.
Mhm.
And 35 to 40%, you say, oh, he's only a $50,000 salary. Well, not really. Add 40% onto that, and it doesn't show up in the library budget. It shows up in the benefits budget.
Right.
Right.
So it affects two buckets. Thanks,
Yeah.
Alice.
And to your point, Jeff, I mean, not to knock Sharon, but when we raised this point in the conversation with her, she was kind of, she knows her library realm exceptionally well, but she was, she, I think, self-admittedly said, I have no idea what the benefits cost, kind of, it was out of her mind. So I think us as a committee and maybe as a town, and as we kind of work with these department heads, they're that kind of knowledge and that kind of awareness needs to be imparted and brought into the system, just so people don't miss that 30 to 40% chunk that comes along with whoever we kindly decide to hire.
Anyway, thank you. I've said my piece.
All right. Is there any further discussion on this? Are we prepared to vote the omnibus? We would need a motion first and a second.
May
I'm
I
gonna make a
mo-
motion.
It hasn't changed since the
I think the 318 is the last one we saw, and that
318. Okay.
So moved.
Second,
Fulgham, aye.
Louis, I.
Vanderslice, aye. I'll fill the silence.
Brown eye.
Zohar, aye.
Beatty, I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
Okay. And
She and I.
did we hear? Okay, we've heard Dana. All right, so I think that passes as well. All right, John, I think that's it except for the eminent domain related
No,
stuff
it's actually
and
not.
Julie's stuff.
It's not actually.
It's not actually. Okay.
You were very close.
I wish. Let me just keep scrolling. Okay, that's East Point.
I'm looking at the spreadsheet. So we did the omnibus, we did Coast Guard housing, we did CPC.
So we said we were gonna, this is, I'm a little confused on this one. So the snow removal, I thought we voted to make no recommendation, but I thought I heard on Tuesday that we were gonna re-vote that. And I think we ended up on no recommendation because we had a split 4-4 vote.
Yeah.
So
And then Dana said that she wanted us to re-vote it when Tommy was.
Everybody mute, please.
All right.
It's just feedback.
I don't know who it is.
yeah.
Seems
Barbara,
to
go
be.
ahead. Good.
Go on, Barbara, try it again.
Dana, you had said that you wanted us to re-vote it when Tommy was with us. That's my recollect. That's what I put in the minutes.
Okay. That might have been about something else, but I
It was
think we
about
already
the
voted.
snow. It was definitely about the snow and the sidewalks.
All right. But it ended up as a no recommendation. That failed 4-4, so she must have voted.
Right. So I'm not quite sure how that, yeah.
So are we okay on this one then?
I
We're
don't
just
think we have
gonna
to
leave
vote.
it, no recommendation?
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
we explain it? Okay. All right,
With regard to citizens petitions,
yeah.
do we, as a committee, vote on them? Do the citizens have an ability to submit some verbiage for support? Do
Yes.
the citizens stand up and at the town meeting and talk about their citizens article?
Yeah.
I believe yes, and usually yes. So yes, the citizens can submit a supporting statement. And on town meeting floor, it's really up to the moderator, but I believe he in the past has typically recognized them as the first, if not, an early speaker on the motion.
Thank you for that clarification.
So after 26, we have not voted this Article 32. I sent an email a little bit late in the day that fleshed out the conversation that Julie had with Sheila with respect to this. I can either pull that email up, I can ask you if you saw it, I can point you to the kind of at least tentative recommendation.
Can you just give us the gist? I did not see it.
So the gist
I did see it, yeah, but you can summarize
the
it.
gist is that Sheila believes that the current 4% rate is higher than it should be or could be given the interest rate environment that we find ourselves in. The state allows us to charge a rate anywhere from, I think, over 8% down to, 1.5 or 1%. So Sheila felt that given the lowering of interest rates, that backing this down to 2.5 was a reasonable thing to do. In the context of Sheila's explanation, she also made the point that I think there was only, to qualify for this, I think you have to have an income of less than $40,000 a year. And currently there's only 2 or 3 properties that use this mechanism to deal with the fact that they can't or are unable to pay their property taxes. And the aggregate value of those taxes that are not paid is, I think, somewhere around $18,000 to $20,000. But I think that's $18,000 to $20,000 per year. So this tax bill eventually will get paid. A lien will be placed on the property, and when the people that own the property, pass on and the property moves to somebody else, the first people that are going to get paid is the town. We're going to get paid the back property taxes that are owed plus 4.5 or 4%. The article says, let's not make it 4%, let's make it 2.5%. So it basically allows certain people, limited number of people, to defer paying their property taxes with the pledge or with the requirement that they're going to pay, a reasonable, or, I guess who defines what's reasonable, a reasonable amount of interest in the future. And, Tony can jump in when he wants, or if he wants, but I think Tony felt that it was a benefit that passes on to not the existing residents, but the future property owners. Go ahead, Dana.
John, could you possibly pull up that email?
Yeah.
I thought there was another case where there's a house
Yeah.
that was like 15 years of this,
Right.
and
I didn't quite, there was a little something in that I didn't
Yeah,
quite.
there's a house on Little Nahant where they haven't paid taxes on it for a very long time.
Yeah.
You're right, Dana.
exactly.
And I think they're waiting until maybe heirs or something. It sounded, it was odd.
Yeah, it looked, Barbara, I just wanted to review that one more time, and I don't want to hurt anybody that's legitimately trying to stay in their home,
Right.
and
Right.
versus this situation where somebody seems to be just not paying on their property for 15 plus years and it's not being sold. So
No, I was agreeing with you. It seemed, I didn't quite understand.
I'm just trying to figure out how to share it. Sorry.
I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand what was going on.
Allison, if I don't pay my property tax, do I get charged interest, or do I also get charged a late fee?
Get charged interest. And the treasurer would know better than I would, but it's so much per day.
All right. So can you guys see this email?
But
Yeah.
this is a special case. You have to have an income threshold to qualify.
Correct.
So it's not just anybody who doesn't pay their taxes.
Right.
You have to be what, over 65 and below this income threshold, as I remember.
Yeah.
The thing I don't,
Yeah.
I suppose we have to do it. The thing I don't particularly like about this is trying to fix an interest rate. If there would be some way to tie it to something that moves with the general interest rates, that would be a better approach than trying to say, oh, it's 2.5%. And then
Mm-hmm.
LIBOR.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'd agree with that, Bob, too. I feel like if we lower it to 2.5 and then interest rates go back up, I don't see us moving it back up. And especially on somebody's, got very limited income. Is the 4% like, does it compound year on year? So,
Well, it doesn't look like it's penalizing the old person. It looks like it's penalizing whoever decides they're going to buy the property. Because it's in the lien amount. Theoretically, by the time you exercise the lien, somebody's already passed on to greener pastures.
yeah,
That's why I don't understand the third paragraph where they say that the owners have passed away, but they're still able to take advantage of this mechanism. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I guess that's where I am too, John. I feel
Yeah.
like this, in this third paragraph, we probably don't want this to happen, but somehow it is.
They don't always, it's not always that they pass, it's just that the house sells.
Yeah.
And it's, one of those things that during the transaction process has to be worked out. So before the sale, I believe, is when the owner who's eligible for this applies for it. And then that calculates the outstanding balance, which is then incorporated into the sale.
So Tony, can you just summarize quickly why you're against it, or why you think we shouldn't?
I don't want to, I'm not strongly against it. I think the law actually starts it out upwards of like 14%. And the town voted years ago to lower it down to 4.5 or whatever it is. And it's one of those things that, to me, it's one of those things like once it's lowered, it's never going to get, you're never going to raise it again because it's got that heartstring attached to it, who's going to vote to increase the interest rate on seniors who can't pay their taxes, right? So once you lower it, it's going to stay there, in my opinion. And I feel like it gets passed on. Like, I feel like it gets passed on to the next person. But it's not a huge impact right now. Although, like I said, it's never, I don't ever see it increasing if it gets lowered even further. But I wouldn't say I'm like extremely against it. I just don't see, it's fairly low as is. And I don't think that it actually, it may penalize whoever is going to receive, the profits from the sale. But I guess, I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just, I also pulled up here that I've kind of been slowly scrolling through Sheila's supporting statement that she had come up with for the article last year. So
we're so dependent on property taxes, and we're so limited as it is. We don't have, like some enormous amount of new growth coming down the line, other than if Coast Guard, after Coast Guard housing, if that passes, we really don't have any new growth. So we're limited. We've always talked about that limitation on property taxes. So when folks don't pay it, it does have an impact on our revenues. And, I just don't see the need. But I wouldn't, this is something that I defer to the assessors on, and they're the experts. And, so I'm not passionately against it. That's just my opinion.
One more factoid, the 4% interest rate is what the town would get if they were to borrow money for various municipal spending. So the interest rates have already come back up.
all right, so what do people think? Do we want to vote it? Do we want to vote it and then add some of the language related to a more specific benchmark for the interest rate? Or do we just want to defer to the assessor and go with what she says?
I defer to the assessor and go with what she says.
Further discussion, or does someone want to make a motion
John, could you bring it back up again, please?
The actual article or what I was
Yeah,
just,
so I can see what it is we're voting on exactly,
sorry.
the wording.
1 second.
See if I can find it.
Do you see in front of me?
Yeah, okay.
To see if the town will vote to reduce the rate of interest that accrues on property taxes deferred by eligible seniors under 4%
see it.
to 2.5. So it's,
Yeah.
we're knocking it down by 1.5%. It's not, yeah. So I'm sorry, did somebody make a I can't remember where we
No,
are.
we don't have a motion yet.
I think we do.
Do we?
I don't think we do.
No, we
Oh.
don't.
Is anybody inclined to make a motion to recommend? Anybody inclined to make a motion to not recommend?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
To not recommend?
Not recommend.
Seconded by Brown.
Further discussion?
If we decrease it by 1.5%, it's never going to go back to 4%, and 4% is the interest that the town pays on their debt and the CPC.
Or says there's a motion in a second. Do we move forward?
Yeah, I mean, if there's no further discussion, we'll take the roll call.
So how do we vote on this? I mean, we're voting to
We're
not
voting to
recommend this.
not recommend.
And so I would, if you were to support not recommending, you would vote aye.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Yes, you would vote yes.
Sheehan votes aye.
Beatty votes aye.
Lewis votes aye.
Brown, aye.
Zohara, aye.
Vanderslice, aye.
Oldham, aye. Okay, that was easy.
Not really.
Yeah, yeah.
Different
Easy dish.
definition.
Okay, so now we haven't voted.
The two Lowlands articles?
Yeah, we haven't voted those. So
I thought 40 was going to disappear.
I think
Tony may have to help us with this
Yeah.
one, but my understanding was that the citizens petition, the citizens would withdraw their motion on town hall floor if they were satisfied with the town's article. Is that correct, Tony?
That's correct.
And have you reached that agreement?
We are in agreement with the language for Article 39. The outstanding question by the lead sponsor is $100,000 enough to accomplish the three goals of the article? And we feel it is. She's just looking for some quotes from our engineers, so we have them working on that now. So I believe that we will get there when she sees those numbers. Ultimately, the article that's written underneath it doesn't accomplish, is way farther away from what we're all trying to accomplish. So I believe we will be there come town meeting, maybe even as soon as next week. But we did have a neighborhood meeting. We talked about what the article, what the goals of the town is, what the desires of the neighborhood are, what we've done so far, where we're heading, what this $100,000 would go to, and we're in agreement with that at this point. It's just they just want to see the numbers to make sure that you know, in the past, articles that had a wide range of uses without a, I guess, priority structure embedded in it. There's always concern that, you know, a bulk of the money will go towards, you know, a different project that is lower in the priority list of the neighborhood. So as long as, you know, we're able to show that the $100,000, which we will be able to show, is enough to accomplish all three things that are identified in the article, we're all on the same page. Does that make sense?
Yep.
That makes sense. I guess I don't quite understand what their concern is, since they were asking for $100,000 themselves. All right, whatever.
There's an outfall pipe, there's a stormwater basin, and there's dredging. The concern is that we would spend all the money on the stormwater basin and the dredging and not have any money for the outfall pipe, which their priority, what they really want to see the town accomplish is the outfall pipe. But $100,000 isn't enough to reopen the outfall pipe. It's what we really need to do first, which is a lot of what you guys had asked for, is, you know, come to us with a feasibility study that says, here's how we're going to accomplish our goal, here's how long it's going to take, and here's how much it's going to cost.
Yeah.
We don't have that information yet. So what we'd like to do is use a portion of this $100,000 to get that information, and then use the rest of it for building the stormwater basin and whatever we have left over towards dredging.
Can we kick the can down the road on item number 40? And it doesn't sound like you're going to get your answer until you've done Article 39. And if they're not happy, they can bring it back up again next year.
Yeah, so I think, Jeff, if we were to kind of quote unquote kick the can, then I would think we would hopefully maybe be in a position to recommend Article 39 and then to not recommend 40. I don't think we're going to recommend both.
You can't recommend or not recommend citizens petition.
That's a fair point.
Could I make a motion to approve of Article 39 lowlands drainage?
You certainly may.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Brown eye.
Fulgham, aye.
Louis, I.
Vanderslice, aye.
Lahora, I.
Beatty, I.
Sheehan, aye.
Is that everybody?
So that was 39, correct?
That was 39, correct.
Right. So that was unanimous approved. Okay.
Right. So even though we're not going to make a recommendation, we're going to stick to that kind of thought that we don't recommend or not recommend citizens petitions. We had come up with this.
So what is it that I put that we're saying? What did we vote to do?
We're just no recommendation.
Okay, we voted to do.
We didn't vote to make no
We did
recommendation.
not vote that. And I'm still a little troubled about 40. I mean, typically, the citizens petitions don't involve money. They don't involve expenditures or borrowings or anything. And this one does.
Right.
Well, and don't they have to pull out where that money's coming from?
They do.
Can I just ask a question? Just for, what is it that we just voted on?
Article
39.
I know, but
39.
what is it that we said? Because we can't vote on articles that are citizens petitions,
No,
so.
39 is a town article.
Oh, 39 is the town one, sorry,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. 39 is the town one.
Got it.
40
Thank
is the citizens one,
Right.
both
Yeah.
kind of covering the same whatever
Yeah, no
issue.
problem. I got it, sorry.
Okay.
I believe that they're gonna, if 39 passes, they're gonna withdraw 40.
So are we gonna make no comment, or are we gonna add something like we have written here in red? And say that, generally the committee doesn't comment on citizens petitions, and we will not be making an official recommendation, but we'll still have a statement? Is that what we're saying?
Could we add and feel as though town management has presented an appropriate article to address the citizens
Yep.
petition number 39?
Yeah, we can certainly add that language. So I guess we'll say we don't need a motion or a vote, but that's what we'll do.
What are we doing here?
We're gonna make no recommendation, but we're gonna,
Just have a sentence there that say, we understand this will be withdrawn by the petitioners,
and that the town,
because,
article number 39.
yeah, reference 39.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay. Everybody agree?
Yes.
Okay.
So we don't need to vote. We're just saying that we're going to change the word.
Yeah, we'll tweak this.
But just to be safe, can we just vote for a no recommendation?
Sure.
I think that's what we've been doing in the past.
Yeah.
So
So,
we need a motion and a second and a vote.
yeah, I'll move.
I'll second.
Who seconded?
Jeff,
Okay,
Fulgham, aye, to make no recommendation.
Vanderslice, aye.
Louis, I.
Brown eye.
ADI.
Or I.
Sheehan, aye.
And then I think we just have Article 43. We didn't vote this according to my records.
And we didn't because Tony said that there was going to be maybe some change.
Yeah, I can't remember what that was.
Which article?
Change it. Coast Guard House, oh,
Continue committees, and Judy has been pointing out that it's not the Coast Guard Housing Committee. It has a much longer and grander title.
Yeah, and I sent that over to you, Bob, and John this afternoon. So I made a couple of changes based on our last meeting.
all right.
So it should be Coast Guard Design Development Advisory Committee,
Yeah,
and
no.
I did make that change.
Okay,
So
so
that'll
this,
be in the final warrant.
yeah, this version that I have here maybe was, I put it together, I can't remember, late yesterday evening, and I didn't probably incorporate that, but I think we're okay. If somebody wants to make a motion, that expresses that we're going to use the wording in the document that Tony just referenced.
Okay. What is the MVP committee?
Oh, that was the other one. I'll you. I think Dana asked me to spell that out, and I didn't. I'm sorry, Dana.
No
That's
problem, Tony.
municipal vulnerability preparedness.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Do we need to make a motion to not recommend this or recommend it with edits?
I'd say recommend it with the edits that Tony's talked about.
All right, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Fulgham, aye.
Brown eye.
Louis, I.
Vanderslice, aye.
Sheehan, aye.
Or I.
Just check one more time. What is it specifically, the wording of what it is we've just voted?
We're recommending Article 43 with edits to
Okay,
be provided by Tony Barletta.
recommending with edits. Okay, got it. Thank you.
John, if you want to send me the document you guys are working off of, I can incorporate those edits and send it back to you. So this way, there's
Okay.
no.
Okay. So then that means we just have 21V, East Point eminent domain, and then Article 22, right? Those are the only two we have left?
That's right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question on that that one.
Mhm.
And I'm not even sure how to word it. But Article V is the funding. And Article, whatever the other one is,
22,
22 is the authorization.
right?
Correct.
So if the funding doesn't pass, then
Yeah, you read my mind.
22 doesn't, then it's, yeah, then we just move right past it.
So I'd like to bring something up to the committee about, are we ready to talk about, kick off our conversation for next Tuesday?
I think we should defer until next Tuesday when we have the entire committee.
I think we should defer until we have the entire committee also.
That's
Okay,
fine.
just a couple points just for thoughts to put out there as we consider this momentous article and sub-article. I think it makes sense for the committee to come up with some price estimate of the eminent domain itself. And this would be the cost of the pro tanto amount,
I
the
thought we
interest
did that.
cost,
It's been done.
and the legal cost.
It's been done.
That's been done.
It's already been done. And
So
it's somewhat irrelevant because these articles essentially cap the amount that the town can spend.
I'm talking about an estimate from the committee to the town so that they can, make the decision.
I don't know. I personally wouldn't feel qualified to do that.
There's information out there in the public space. It's all available.
I would not feel qualified to try to put a value on what the value of a conservation easement at each point is. It's not in my skill set.
Agreed. And we did a rough estimate. There's been a lot of work on that.
What estimates are to you?
Well, wasn't there, we did, Bob started it out and then we gathered information from the, I've forgotten his name. What was his name, guys?
The RKG, Craig?
Yes. Yeah, so that we have that information, but I as a
That's-
committee member, I don't know that I'd say that I'd have anything else to add.
That would be the cost of, the RKG was the cost of
Yeah.
not
I think-
doing eminent domain.
I
Talking
think
about
the
the cost of
purpose of going ADA sort of took the steam out of that override.
I feel like we're going too far into this
I
right
know.
now when
Yeah.
we really should be doing this with the entire committee and doing it in kind of a more structured fashion.
All
I
right.
agree.
I hear that the committee's not, we're not deliberating right now. I'm just saying we should think
Agreed.
about how we're going to present the cost of doing the eminent domain to the town.
I still think that this is we had thought about a structured kind of discussion. And we've now entered into what feels like an unstructured discussion. And so I think we should defer and follow the plan to do this in a more structured way.
So I don't think the discussion about, I don't think the point that Dana raises is out of order. I mean, I think when we gather on Tuesday to actually make the vote, because we can't keep, we have to get it done. It's fair to ask what other things should we be thinking about? I mean, it is at the wire, but I think, the RKG proposals and the numbers that we've seen generally focus on the kind of expense to the town, not specifically the expense of the eminent domain. So we're relying on what the selectmen and their advisors and what their lawyers have told us. And I think it's okay to kind of ask the question, is that, do we, we have to span both worlds. We have to span what Northeastern says, and we have to span what the Board of Selectmen say, and we have to somehow, find a way to communicate the middle to the people. And I think what Dana's asking isn't, I get the hesitancy of the committee, our expertise in coming up with a number, which is the problem we've had in the past. That's
Right.
why we relied on RKG. But
Well,
we can still have a discussion about
yeah, yes,
how we-
and we absolutely have to have that discussion.
Yes.
But we can't, we're confusing the cost to the town of having of having that development proceed. And I thought what Dana was asking was for this committee to try to come up with the value of what the taking would be. Did I misunderstand? And if I did, I apologize.
Yeah, Bob, I can respond to that. What I'm asking the committee to think about is how are we going to communicate to the town meeting the cost? It's not going to be one number. It's going to probably be a range of what the eminent domain will cost.
Yeah, it's a valid question. And I think it all comes back to, do we, what credible sources are there for that valuation?
Well, we have a range in mind. Most of us should have a range in mind. We don't have one number. I mean, there's an estimate out there that was provided to the Board of Selectmen of $1.87 million. That's one number. And then that's the minimum, and it's probably going to be another number higher than that to provide a range. And I have a higher number that I've researched and come up with cases that seem to line up, but I'd like the committee to kind of think about, how do we tell everybody how much this is going to cost? Not the cost of not doing it, the cost of doing it.
I would simply say, I was not saying that these were not important questions. They're very important questions.
Right.
And Dana, I very much appreciate the questions, and there are certainly things we need to talk. I was just simply saying, talking about them now
Yes.
at this meeting. That's all I was saying, because I think we need to have all of us together. But I understand why you're raising them, and they're important questions. So I want you to understand that. That's
Thank
all I was talking about, was now versus on Tuesday.
Right, it's just something I think we should all think about, and as we lead into the Tuesday meeting.
Okay.
Matt?
Can I actually, so I'm gonna probably throw a grenade into the Zoom, but I'll just throw it out there because I had kind of started on this path a little bit as a citizen. So I'll just backtrack for a second. So where do I get my information? I generally get my information from, with respect to Northeastern, from the documents that they put out. I look at the letters that the selectmen write. I've looked at the regulatory filings that Northeastern is required to complete. So I'm not a Facebook person. I don't use Facebook. I don't get information through that venue. So, a lot of people probably have more knowledge of different things that they think is, well-grounded, but I don't, and that may be true, but I don't receive information that way. So one of the things that I had kind of thought in my own mind is that we've heard a lot from the, Northeastern, and also from the selectmen, and from their advisors about the Institute and eminent domain. And I thought for a second, I said, well, we've never really talked to Northeastern. We've heard from Northeastern, but we've never talked to them. So, last week or in thereabouts, I reached out to Jeff Trussell and I said, hey, Jeff, do you know, just as a citizen, if somebody from Northeastern wanted to talk to the FinCom about specifically the financial risks related to a future evolution or not of an arrangement with Northeastern and the Coastal Sustainability Institute, would anyone want to talk to us, or could anyone talk to us? I could go to the committee and find out if anybody wanted to talk to you if you were so inclined. So he obviously pushed it off to Ralph Martin, their general counsel. I didn't ever have any correspondence with him, but another lawyer, Mike Ferrari, and then a community liaison, Mike Glover, got back in touch with me and said, yeah, we'd come talk to you guys at the meeting. And I kind of said to myself, well, it's very late in the game, but I will let the committee know that is potentially an option. And so I'm throwing it out there. The way that I would potentially see this happening is that we would give them a very specific list of questions, again, centered around the financial risks related to doing the eminent domain or not, and also any potential change in the financial remuneration between the town and Northeastern if they were able to continue on the path that they are so inclined. So it would be a very specific set of questions that we would send to them. They could either choose to engage conversation or not. And then we'd have that information to help us make our decision. So I'm just, like I said, what do you think? Too late?
I mean, this is Dana. I would certainly support a written set of questions submitted to Northeastern. We might want to think about, what financial and risk related questions we had for them. And I certainly would have a couple. So, I mean, it would help us with our decision.
I
The information is always good.
Information is always good. I'm worried about the turnaround time, but
Yeah.
I agree. I'd support that, because I think that we've said that we weren't getting any response, and now you have. So I don't see how we could not support it. I am worried about it at this late date, but it doesn't negate the fact we shouldn't have the conversation.
I agree with you, Judy. I mean, it's important information to try to get if we can, but it's late.
It is, but I do think that if we say no, then they're justified in saying, well, they said they'd come to us, but we didn't want them.
Right. And my point is that, it feels to me like, that the two sides have kind of taken their stand. And again, I feel like we need to operate somewhere in the middle and kind of parse through this. Again, it probably should have been done sooner than this, but I would argue on one hand also that the selectmen should have tried to figure out how to engage a conversation before we found ourselves where we are now.
I guess what the other concern that I have is this appear as if we're going around the selectmen, because that's not our intention at all.
Well, so one of the things that I noticed when we had one of the selectmen with us, and it was right around the time that Northeastern had published their most recent letter. I think it was communication number 8, maybe. And the selectman said, "Oh, I don't even look at that. I don't even read that. I'm not even going to look." Just completely, absolutely dismissive of information. And I felt like, come on, you can't be,
Can't ignore it. You've got to at least be able to respond to it.
right. So I just felt like, you know, I don't want to characterize myself or us as going around the selectmen. I just feel like there's a conversation out there that, you know, needs to be had that isn't being had. I mean, of course, lawyers will tell you that, you know, you can't talk. You got to kind of retreat to your corner and defend your turf and commit to your argument and stay with it, which is probably what they're doing. But I'm not a real, I like some lawyers, but I'm not a lawyer.
That was an interesting comment.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
So,
so
The next step,
so
what
I
is the next step for this then? The next step
So-
would be for us to
would
compile
say,
some questions.
yeah, I'll set, so let me cite exactly what I said. And then you guys can send me questions that are along these lines.
So what, may I propose something?
Sure.
Can we use either John or myself, it doesn't matter who, to collect questions from the committee? But I think we should all review those questions and kind of consolidate them in some fashion prior to sending them to Northeastern, which is a somewhat of a fancy way of saying we might need like a Saturday meeting here to do that.
You can't post that in time though. It'd have to be a Sunday meeting, right?
A Sunday meeting.
Yeah.
Or a Monday meeting.
Yeah, that doesn't give Northeastern a whole lot of time to respond.
Right. So let me just explain. This is what I said. I said, to make any meeting productive, I would think it would be helpful to focus the conversation by sending you some questions before any meeting. So it could be decided if ahead of time, if you were comfortable with such a conversation. The topics/questions would likely center on the financial issues, risks related to the present difficulty in bringing the two sides together, the town and Northeastern, outside of the current path that is seemingly biased towards litigation. So, you know, again, it's not just a blanket list of questions about why do you want to build your building there and why can't you build it somewhere else. It's more centered on the mandate that we have related to the fiscal and financial interests of the town. So,
John, I'm going to need you to send me that.
yeah, I'll send you that.
Okay, thank you.
So Bob, going back to your point, so how would we do this? We could post a meeting for Monday and we could go over the questions then. And then I could tell Northeastern that they wouldn't have any time. Could the committee send either you or me questions? And then we just offer up the list of questions to Northeastern? Like, do we have to call it?
John, I think that makes sense with the amount of time that we have. Maybe you got the contact, we can send the questions to you. And
Well, I think the entire committee needs to
Close those questions.
see and agree to the questions before we ask them.
Okay. So how can we do that?
And I'm trying to think of what the posting rules are. Could we post it for tomorrow morning
For Sunday?
for Sunday? I don't know whether it's like working days or.
Yeah, I can't remember. I feel like
it's working days. It's working days.
Sorry to interrupt. May I offer a suggestion? This
Sure.
is Ken.
Sure.
I think much in the same way that the verbiage around the recommendations is written, when it's sequential, it sort of passes, each person gets a chance to look at it, but it's not you all meeting together.
Right.
That mechanism allows everyone to look at it without violating the.
No, it's a violation of the open meeting law to do it sequentially. It doesn't matter.
That's what we always have done.
I just had this conversation last week, or actually this week with Jeff Blake. So
I'm confused because that's how the recommendations had always been written. So why would the questions be any
They-
different?
They never passed sequentially from person to person. They were back and forth between an individual and whoever was compiling them. But
Okay.
if you
So
pass
would not-
something sequentially between the committee members, you're still passing it through a quorum of the committee.
So if you pass it from, say, me to you, you to Barbara, Barbara to you to Dana, Dana to you to Jeff, like that's okay.
No, that's not okay. But if I write a recommendation and then I send it to you and you incorporate it in the book, that's fine because that's between you and me and that's not a quorum,
Mhm.
right? But if we have any kind of a communication that involves a quorum, whether it happens through a blind copy or a sequential, passing of things, it's still.
Okay. So you're saying,
I had this very specific conversation with Jeff Blake, so.
but to Ken's point, the way we have typically written the front of the book letter has been in that very way. So we have been doing that in a way that we shouldn't have.
Well, I think that's a letter, right? Is that different? I don't know.
A letter can pose questions or make statements, which is all we'd be doing. No, I don't know. I'm just asking for clarification, Bob, since if you know, is it make sense that we shouldn't have been doing what we have done in the past? Ken?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
My recollection is we never really had collective edits of it other than in person at the meeting.
That's not how it was done.
Yeah, no, maybe not everybody was involved in the letter and it was like the 3 or 4 handfuls.
I think that might have been true.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that that last book that I saw the final letter before it was printed.
Okay. All right. So how about tomorrow we find out what the posting requirements are. If we can post on a Sunday, then we'll do that. If not, then how about everybody?
And we ought, another thing we ought to do is run this past town council too, just to be sure we're not tripping over something we don't know about.
Well, they might tell us that we're tripping over something, but we might really not be tripping over something. You know what I mean?
That too.
Yeah.
Well, that's the concern, right?
Assuming we move forward, when would you like, worst case, first round of questions? I don't mind forwarding to you and John in,
How
Bob,
about by Saturday? Sometime Saturday, by the end of the day on Saturday.
end of the day, Saturday.
And we'll see if we can post a meeting for Monday to go over the questions. How about that? And that's all we'll do on Monday.
All right.
And then if all this falls apart, then we'll communicate that as well. And I'll reach out to Northeastern tomorrow and tell them what we're thinking about. And if they think, oh, there's no possible way we can work on that timeline, then we'll say, oh, should have thought of this sooner.
John, this is Dana. I think that this is a good even-handed approach, and I think time is going to be of the essence. So if we can reach out to Northeastern tomorrow, like you said, I think that makes a lot of sense. And then tell them we might have some written questions ready for them next week.
And I'll try to check with Jeff Blake whether.
All right, you cover that and
the town is in a lawsuit with Northeastern University, so I'm just being wary here.
Yeah,
Me
but
too.
we're not, right?
Well,
We're not.
Well, we are effectively the town.
we are.
We're the town meeting,
We're not the town.
not the executive branch of the town.
No, I get that, but we, the financial, we talk to the financials of the town. So it's not that we're an independent, we're not an island. Forgive that, let me try that again. Well, we're an island, but we're not a peninsula. How's that?
You're Tombolo to be technical, but yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
thanks.
well, we'll find out then. Lawyers will make some money tomorrow.
All right, that'd be good.
If I know it's late here, and I just wanted to ask one other question before you all wrapped up. The way the draft of the article is currently written, it does include the phrase that eminent domain would be focused on Chapter 80. However, it also includes in the list of ways that the taking might happen the word or otherwise, or the phrase or otherwise, which could very much be construed to take some other means than Chapter 88. It also specifies that the title would be taken at fee simple or lesser, fee simple being total ownership, and that's not what was discussed. What was discussed was a conservation easement. So while the intent of what the selectmen described at the last meeting was much narrower than they had prior, specifically being ADA and just for conservation easement, that's not the way the current article is written.
I remember, Ken, that we were told that that element would be in the motion, if I remember correctly. Does anybody else remember that?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. So the article is written more to
Right.
serve notice, and the motion that will be read on town meeting floor will be very specific and as to all of the points you raised.
That places that's that's a huge amount of uncertainty, and honestly, I don't think that's fair to voters. Those are two huge variables, and it's the very essence of what this whole discussion has been about, particularly from a financial perspective.
You need to come to
So,
town meeting and listen to the motion.
I would suggest that perhaps the article could be written better, and that this committee has the ability to discuss with the selectmen clarity and exercise its independence per the town charter, and perhaps clarify so the public doesn't need to work quite as hard to wade through all of this.
Yes.
That would be my recommendation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other comments from the public? Since we seem to have moved into public forum.
Bob, I have a question.
Go ahead. And who, just so we know, who is that?
This is Mark Cullen.
Hi, Mark.
So interesting conversation that's going on. I think that the answer Ken's question first, and I have a follow-up from that. The article is written and approved by, reviewed by town council. And we take his opinion very seriously as a person who has been through this a number of times. As you indicated, the motion itself will be much more specific. I think I think the town administrator sent to you today a supporting statement from the Board of Selectmen that is very specific about what our intentions are. We also submitted to you a map that indicates the area that we are asking to take and the method by which we are taking the conservation easement. So I think those are all very clear and transparent. The second question about the financial risk to the town, I think is already been settled under ADA. There is no further risk, financial risk to the town than what we are issuing at the town meeting in May. If the cost of the taking exceeds the amount of money we have, we will abandon the process. And it's as simple as that. There is no more financial risk to the town. And I don't know how more specific we can be to that. And whatever Northeastern tells you, I mean, we cannot spend more money than has been appropriated by town meeting. We're asking town meeting to appropriate $1.5 million to the Community Preservation Fund. We cannot spend any more money than that. So, I mean, there is no further financial risk to the town other than that.
So Mark, not to interrupt you, but when I speak of the financial risk, I'm not speaking necessarily specifically about the financial risk of the cost of the eminent domain. I think you're right. I think there's a landscape of numbers that will kind of let us understand that. The financial risk I'm more talking about is we have these reports from RKG and from other people that have created numbers that project out the cost of Northeastern if they were to expand, and also, in essence, the cost implied by them being here currently. So we know that the pilot, the payment in lieu of taxes, is a negotiated agreement, right? And so to get, that's the side of the equation I'm more wondering about is, how can the town, what does the landscape look like if the town is to make some accommodation to Northeastern in terms of, how do the financial dynamics of the relationship potentially change? I'm not out on that point where I'm saying, eminent domain it's a strategic or an actual act, but it has consequences in many different ways.
Mhm. Okay. I mean, I think if Northeastern uses the same methodology as the city of Boston uses in determining what their pilot would be, I'd be satisfied with that. And Northeastern doesn't even commit to that amount that is established in the city of Boston. If the cost of the infrastructure and the operating expenses to the town with the expansion, I don't know, has Northeastern done an independent study on this? As the town has, using an independent consultant?
Yeah,
I don't think they're gonna do it in the next 2 days.
yeah, I didn't realize that was where you wanted to go with this. I'm not sure what Northeastern could offer as to what the cost to the town is going to be. I mean, they could certainly speak to whether they want to pay a pilot or not.
I guess,
And under what circumstances they may be willing to renegotiate a pilot.
let me ask a different question. What is our expected outcome from the conversation? So before we go to all the trouble to schedule, to meetings, all of that, what is our anticipated outcome? What do we want from this meeting?
Good. Yeah. Thank you, Judy. What are we going to get from this?
Well, wouldn't we want maybe just ask some basic questions that could start with pilot or whatever we decide as a committee? And the written questions could,
Yeah, but
I
that's
think
not,
have to be in a meeting,
no,
submit them to them, see if they want to reply by a letter.
I don't think we answered Judy's question. What do we want to get from this?
We want to get some answers about the financing and the risk.
I think, okay, the financing and the risk from their side, not from the town side. How would they know the town side?
How would, exactly.
I mean, I again, I'm for meeting with them because I think that certainly the town needs to meet with them and they've offered them, and now we're in an awkward spot where we can't say no. But what is it that we hope to gain?
So I would say that I think if we commit to having the meeting on Monday, once we see the questions in front of us, then we can have a more coherent conversation about what we expect to get out of it. And if we see the questions and we all agree that it's pointless. We're going in circles and we won't get any information that will help us make a decision on Tuesday, then then the committee has the full power to kind of reject that idea and that path,
John, let me just add that, I'm serious when I say this, and I'm not just blowing smoke, but I am willing to negotiate and discuss all of these issues with Northeastern. And they have not been willing to come to the table to this point. And if we need eminent domain to bring them to the table to discuss these important issues and to get these answers that the town deserves, then that's what we need to do. I don't want to do this, but if we have to do this to get them to the table, I think we need to do it.
The only thing I would say, the one nuance that kind of makes my antennas stand up is that it seems like the path that the selectmen are on is completely aligned with absolutely no building on or near the existing bunker structure. And that's to me, that's a point where if the town is unwilling to give on that, then to me, there's no negotiation, because that's what Northeastern wants. So if the town doesn't acknowledge that it's willing to potentially engage a conversation that would allow development on or near the site that they've already kind of specified, they get something and then we give some. I mean, it's kind of, they've got to have something given.
But John, we could flip that conversation right around. And I could say that, if Northeastern is unwilling to identify other areas on their site to accomplish their needs, then they're not negotiating in good faith. And we know firsthand from discovery on the court filings that there are other sites on their property that they could build their facilities.
Okay,
that
so
they have not discussed publicly.
Yeah. So then why not agree to go into negotiation that doesn't take anything off the table?
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. We should go in negotiation. Nothing, no preconditions. Let's go in and negotiate from
Okay.
ground one.
Okay.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
Okay.
Hey, Mark, this is Dana.
Hi, Dana.
How's it going? Thanks for giving us some background. Do you have any questions that you'd like to pose to Northeastern through the FinCom? Would you like anything answered from Northeastern?
I have a lot of questions.
How about one or two?
I could probably do one or two, Dana.
All right.
I don't know. I think that's kind of, that's inappropriate and is.
Yeah,
Yeah, there are different clones.
It's a whole different question. And before we start trying to serve as a conduit for the selectmen.
Yeah, I absolutely pitched it as an independent FinCom conversation. It's with the FinCom. It's not with the selectmen. It's not with the citizens.
I think you're right. Yeah. I appreciate you, Dana, asking, but I probably agree with John and Bob that, we would just muddle the waters a little here if we sort of.
I understand, we represent as the FinCom, the annual town meeting. So, I mean, you're part of the town.
Right.
And we just, I hate to keep harping on it, but we do not represent the town meeting. The town meeting is its own body. We are an advisor to the town meeting.
Yeah. All right. So
I think there's a solution to this problem. I really do. And, we're not going to get to that solution if we can't meet and negotiate. And, you know, I've tried my hardest to do that, and I've been unsuccessful, but, you know, I just don't have any leverage.
I mean, this, Mark, this is an opening, you know, it's
Yeah.
some questions that is certainly in order from the FinCom, and it could help.
Yeah, it could help.
All right, so
I
let's,
appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
yeah, so let's see what questions we can come up with by Monday. We'll post the meeting tomorrow and we'll discuss the questions, and if it's worthy to send them on, or even if Northeastern thinks it makes sense from their end. And if not, we'll get to Tuesday and we'll vote and we'll go from there.
All right, great, thank you. Are we set then?
I think so. Is there further discussion? And if not, motion to adjourn is probably in order.
So moved.
Is there a second?
No seconds to
Second that.
adjourn? Zahora, aye.
Bolger, aye.
Brown eye.
Bender Slice, aye.
She and I.
So
Barbara? You're on mute.
you're on mute. We can,
Beatty, aye.
there you go.
Barbara, thank you so much for taking the minutes.
You're welcome, but I haven't written them up yet.
This will be-
You know, the fact that you offered is terrific. So thank you very much.
The
Yeah.
amount of time it's going to take to write these up. I write other things and do research. This is an enormous amount of time it's going to take to write them up
I know.
in
I know.
the
And this,
level.
this one will be a challenge.
What
This
challenge?
one will be a challenge.
Indeed.
That's great, Phil. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for
Thank you.
understanding that, and thank you for saying so.
All right, everybody have a good night. We see a lot of each other. See you later.
Exactly. Have a
Alrighty,
good night,
bye-bye.
everyone.
Good night, all.
Good night.